Hey y'all, welcome back to another round of Pokemon I've never used before. Today, we go through my favorite region of Johto. Considering how big of a Johto fan I am, you were probably expecting me to have used all the Johto mons. However, that wouldn't be the case. There are some Pokemon in the decks that have, for whatever reason, turned me off, I just forgot about, or I've wanted to use them but haven't yet. This list will only cover mons I haven't used for an in-game playthrough. Competitive will be excluded here because I've used a lot of mons there. But yeah, surprisingly I had an easy time coming up with a Johto list because there are more mons here that I haven't used versus Kanto. Anywho though, before we begin the list, Mystic reads the usual routine. Link will be in the description below. But with that, let's start.
Hello everyone, this is Satoru Iwata from Nintendo.
Up at number 10 is a Pokemon I definitely forget about a lot, being Zatu. I'm so used to using the Girafarig, the Alakazam line, or Espeon, that this totem bird always seems to slip my mind. Not to mention, Sigilith is the better psychic flying type anyway, and because of how much praise I give Sigilith, it usually overshadows Zatu. What makes me forget about Zatu is simply the fact I don't go to the ruins of Alphalot, and you can find Natu there. Not only do I forget about it, but when you look at this learn set in move pool, you start to realize why it kind of turns me off from using it as well. Yeah, Psychic at level 59 and Air Cutter from the Battle Frontier according to its Soul Silver learn set. I want to love and try to use Zatu, but looking at this move pool is making it very hard for me. In later gens, it does get a tad better, but still. I want to use it in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, as that set of games are one of my favorites. Next is a bug flying type that crossed my mind as I was looking at the list of Johto mons, Yanma. I mentioned it a few times on my best bug type team for every game video because of the limited bug types some games had. Despite that though, I really enjoy Yanma and Yanmega's designs. The evolution method is also a relatively simple process to go through. Level it up while knowing ancient power. It doesn't get any decent flying and bug attacks till later in gameplay in earlier gens though, but it does get better as the gens go on. In Gen 4 though, it doesn't get Air Slash and Bug Buzz till the level 50 range. However, it still does get some decent special attack coverage. With Shadow Ball, Ancient Power, okay, that's actually it. But at least in Gen 6 it gets better. I want to use it regardless, because it's cool and it has some dope abilities. And we have another bug type popping up today with Ariados. Ariados can be found at the very beginning of the Johto games, and with that notion in mind, I've never forgotten about it. I've purposely never used it because it sucks. Heracross and Scizor also exists, but I will say Ariados does have a cool design. And in Gen 4, something that I never looked into was that it actually gets Bug Bite very early on. I don't necessarily want to use it, but I want to try it. 40 base speed is not great. I'm sorry for laughing, it's just not good. Bug Bite and Sludge Bomb are the best options for Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and I think I'll give it a go, regardless. Of course, in later gens though, the move pool does improve. I just don't get why a lot of move pools in earlier gens just suck. Like, does Game Freak just love making crappy Pokemon crappier than they are? I mean, I'll use Ariados for the challenge, but jeez man. I'm gonna wait to evolve Spinarak though, until level 43 for Poison Jab. This is gonna be painful for Heart Gold and Soul Silver, but wish me luck. You know, I've always slammed Togetic in Gen 2, and in Gen 4, I've never really gave it a chance. It sucks because Togetic can't evolve in the Togekiss until post-game, which is another thing that grinds my gears about Johto. Post-game availability. Sneasel. But let's take a look at its move pool though. Maybe I'm wrong. It can't be that bad, right? Oh boy. Yeah, never mind. Gen 2 Togetic returns. Move pool sucks. Again. Well, let's look at the bright side. We got Ancient Power, Fire Blast, and Shockwave? Oh, never mind. Post-game. Grass Knot? Shit. Water Pulse? You know what? I'm done. Metronome only playthrough. And with Ancient Power, we got boosts. Yeah, you know what? This could work. Let's give it a go. At number 6 is a Pokemon I do tend to forget about, being Jumppuff, and part of that is due to my love for Meganium and Blossom. Jumppuff is super adorable though, and it's always had an amazing design to me. I love the blue and the cotton, it's just adorable. I'm gonna save my move pool rant because I've already talked about it enough. However, at least this time, Jumppuff can get Aerial Ace from Mount Mortar after Waterfall. At least this isn't post-game. It's painful, but not that painful. But you know what is painful? The stats. But it's adorable, and I'm gonna use it. I mean, for Arceus' sake, we can still Poison Powder and Leech Seed combo, damn it. At level 10, Hoppip gets Tackle. That's when the journey begins. You know, Gliscor is a pretty dope ground type, and even its pre-evolution Gligarp is pretty decent. I've used both plenty of times in competitive, but I've never tried either of them in-game. Unfortunately, it's another late-game encounter and only version exclusive to Heart Gold, but that's alright. You can get it earlier in Platinum, and you can get the Razor Fang earlier too, being just south of Veilstone City. However, this is a Johto list, so I will only be going with Gligar. Regardless, as a Gligar, it can still get Aerial Ace and Earthquake at decent times. Gligar has alright stats too for a non-fully evolved Pokemon. It sucks that in Heart Gold it's late game, but Pokemon Platinum does do a good job of in-game availability. Of course, in later gens I'll probably give it a go too, as clearly it's easier to use and find. I'll give it to X and Y. Despite its flaws and stale stories, a lot of Pokemon are easier to get and use. Next is a Pokemon that does get used pretty often, but only to evolve it into its final evolution, Mamoswine. However, I don't see enough people giving love to Piloswine. Swinub is a tad late, but at least you can have an Ice type by the time you get to Claire. Piloswine also gets Earthquake at level 40, and heck, even Ice Fang at level 28, so I'll be damned, it's pretty decent. I don't know why I've never used Piloswine before. The in-game availability isn't the greatest, but I've used other mons that can be gotten at around this time before. I guess Lapras has really rubbed off on me as one of the best ice types for Johto. Even in Gen 2, Piloswine can still get Earthquake via TM. I guess the speed could have turned me off, but regardless, it's pretty good. Ugh. Being in traffic freaking sucks. Move it, you piece of junk! Alright, jokes aside, number 3 is Mantine. Yeah, I've never used Mantine before. It's not a bad mon, just another one of those mons I kind of forgot existed. What's funny is that I never realized it was a version exclusive to Heart Gold. It seems to be catchable pretty early too. I think the reason why I never truly used Mantine was just because it didn't evolve into anything. As a kid, and even to now, I've always been excited with the prospect of getting a new Pokemon through evolution. I mean, it gets you excited and hypes you up, because you can't wait to see what it turns into. Am I the only one who thinks this way? Sure, Mantine came around, but it evolves into Mantine, and we already know that. Regardless, Mantine is a pretty good Pokemon with decent stats. Its move pool is surprisingly pretty good too. Not using Mantine is actually a pretty big mistake I've made. Wow. This honking Stingray is solid for in-game. At the penultimate spot is another mon I've once again used in competitive multiple times, but never for in-game, being Fortress. I know why I haven't used Fortress actually, and that's simply because I don't like using defensive Pokemon for playthroughs. Move pool and learn set wise, it's alright in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and you can find Pineco by headbutting trees. It does have a base 90 attack though, so it does have some offensive power. In the case of bug types, like I mentioned for Yanma, Heracross and Scizor do exist. Speaking of Scizor, Fortress and it share the same type combination. I guess I could give it a try, only having one weakness being to fire. It's a pretty good way to round out a team, and running Explosion could definitely be pretty hilarious. I do want to use it though, because it's got a sick design. And recently I've been watching the Johto anime again, and seeing Brock use his gets me kind of excited. And at number 1 is something I've always wanted to use, but never was really able to because of trait evolutions, and forgetting about the King's Rock. Politoed is actually adorable. If I have used this Pokemon, it was probably a long time ago when I was a kid, so I honestly don't remember if I've used it or not. But to the best of my knowledge, I feel as though I haven't. Politoed is definitely one of my favorite Johto water types, and you know dang well I've used this before in competitive with Drizzle. It's got pretty good stats for a playthrough. The move pool is also fine, and the learn set's fine too. And like I said before about the Johto anime, Misty's Politoed clapping its hands all the time happily makes me want to use it more. The anime really does have a way of inspiring me to use certain mons. I would actually even argue Politoed is easier to get than Poliwrath regardless of trait evolution. The evolution stones are kind of a pain to get in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. Not as bad as Gen 2, but still a bit tedious. With Politoed, all you have to do is evolve Poliwag and grab a King's Rock, although you do need Surf. I like Politoed a lot though, and I'm surprised I have no recollection of using one. Well, that wraps up the top 10 Johto Pokemon I've never used before. What about you guys? Are there any Johto mons you haven't used before? Be sure to let me know down below if you haven't, and also give your thoughts on this list. Until then though, I'll see y'all next time.